I have local community members. This is a small community that I'm in. So I'll bring in pastors that are patients. I'll bring in nurse practitioners that are patients and other civic leaders in our community, and I'll interview them. And that really gets the community involved because it's like, oh, I know that person. I like this.
Hey, Smart Chiropractors. Welcome to the Smart Chiropractor Show and our featured guest segment. I'm Dr. Jeff Langmaid here with my co-host, Dr. Jason Deitch. And today we have the opportunity to chat with a doc out there doing the thing. He is podcasting and having a fantastic time curating fantastic patients for his practice via the outreach he's doing via podcasting. Dr. Chris Mosier. Chris, thanks for taking some time and chatting with us today.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This is an honor.
It is our pleasure. Thank you. And I'd like to peel it back. Jason and I were talking pre-roll a little bit. Shooting a video and pulling out your phone seems like an easy thing to do. Podcasting is just about the hardest way to start creating content through the technology. What made you think about starting a podcast for your practice?
Well, it's kind of interesting when you're in practice, as many of your audience is, you're talking to somebody, say it's somebody that came in for sciatic pain, or some of my patients call it the psychedelic pain, which is really funny. But then I start to talk to them about kids and how we help out with ear infections and we can help prevent some ear infections. I do that often with my boys, and you can just see their eyes get really big. They're like, are you crazy? Can you really do that? Or I'll talk to them about, oh yeah, so-and-so, or not using names, but I have a patient who has acid reflux and it goes away. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And so I thought, well, people need to know. And I could do these lay lectures all the time, do dinner with the docs, which is still really good things. But why don't I just buy a camera, record myself, and put it on the internet and see if I can help educate my community in that way.
Hey, Doc, the money is in your list. If you're not utilizing weekly email newsletters to drive reactivations into your practice, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. To schedule a demo and see how we help hundreds of docs do this each and every week, go to thesmartchiropractor.com today. Again, that is thesmartchiropractor.com. Schedule a demo with our team. But right now, we'll get back into this awesome interview on Interviews by the Smart Chiropractor.
I love it. I'm on your website. People can go to mosierfamilychiropractic.com. Scroll down. It says, listen to the podcast. The title of the podcast, Thriving with Chiropractic. I'm not sure I could even come up with a better title. It says it. I think what everybody's listening is probably wanting to know is, what's the feedback? What's the response? Both sort of emotionally, and I'm sure listeners are going to want to know, is it worth it? And how long did it take you to sort of build an audience and get it to be worth it beyond sort of that feeling like, okay, I'm doing the right thing by sharing the message to those who want to listen?
True. And to be honest, I'm probably in still the stage of, this is a good thing. I feel good about doing this. I personally am still working on learning the email marketing, which is, I think, extremely important. About halfway through, so I started the podcast January of 2021. So we're at about 75 episodes, roughly. And I'll have 20 to 30 views or listens to the episode. So I'd like it to be higher, of course. However, when I started emailing out the episode to my patient base, those numbers started to rise. So yes, I'm still in the process.
Are you getting feedback and people listening, coming in and talking about it at all?
Oh, yes. The ones that do listen to it, they have a massive appreciation for what we do and are referring their friends and their family. It has paid dividends in our practice, of course. But it's a slow process. I'm not, TikTok famous, as you say.
I think that is a very, very fair and balanced way to look at it. A couple of things I want to point out, Chris, that you mentioned for everybody listening and watching. Number one is the tying together of what you were doing with the podcast and the email marketing and amplifying the results by using what we would call multi-channel marketing. Very wise way to go about it. Great thought there. The second component that I want to commend you on is getting to that 75 episode marker, wherever you're at around that, because it takes consistency. At the Smart Chiropractor, we talk about teach and invite consistently as a core of everybody's marketing engine, and certainly what we do with practices. Now, one thing that you brought up is the 75 episodes. How do you think of what you're going to talk about? How do you curate, so to speak, the titling or the topic for each podcast episode?
That is a great question. And we have bounced around with a lot of ideas. So like I said, I'm learning as I go through this. So going through different topics of things that I commonly see. So carpal tunnel, the psychedelic nerve or the sciatic nerve, or migraines, or, all the list of conditions that we see. And so I talk about those, and then I started to interview docs. So then I would go back and forth from another doc interview and then a condition. And with the doc interviews, I always like to ask the question of, why did you become a chiropractor? What is your most significant patient story? Because everybody loves stories. Our theme of the office is your story matters. So bringing in other docs and getting their stories has been phenomenal, because you learn so much and their input from them. And then I started something new that I'm quite proud of, is I have local community members. This is a small community that I'm in. So I'll bring in pastors that are patients. I'll bring in nurse practitioners that are patients, and other civic leaders in our community. And I'll interview them in my little 7 foot by 7 foot studio that I have. And that really gets the community involved, because it's like, oh, I know that person. I like this. And so I ask them about them. And that's how I get my patients to do this. I ask them about them. I ask them about their business. And then at the end, I ask them, so how does chiropractic help you thrive in what you do? And this has really been kind of neat.
I assume you're getting a whole variety of answers you would not know unless you asked.
Yes.
And it's got to be very enlightening. And are you going to the point now when you bring in a pastor or a local influencer of any kind, do you find that they're sharing their episode with their audience also yet? Or are you still keeping it sort of with your audience?
They are sharing it. That most of the folks that I'm interviewing, they're a little bit older than I am, and they simply just take their phone and just hit the share button. They don't, download the episode and share it themselves. They just simply do the one hit wonder button click, so to speak. But it's still helpful in growing the audience.
What are you most surprised in doing this? Is there, something you sort of thought was going to happen, and have you had any positive surprises, or, wow, I wasn't expecting this unintended positive outcome, but
I'll share a couple stories. So, Dr. Baker, he's over in Idaho, a really neat doc. I met him at a conference one year, and he told me how when his son was born, it was failure to thrive. And so he told me how he adjusted his son, and the baby threw up, got that mucus out of there and lived. And that was a fan favorite. People really liked that one. Another one, Dr. Dan Yochter, we had on the interview. Really neat guy, a lot of wisdom. So I interviewed him, and he told me about his dad getting into a really bad accident and had terrible migraines for years, 40 years. And his older brother, who I also had on the show, so it was a back-to-back episode, really neat. And so the older brother, Dr. David, said, yeah, I adjusted him. What Dr. Dan didn't tell you is that their marriage, my parents' marriage, was collapsing because of dad's migraines. And so it's like, oh, everyone has a story, and everyone has a different piece of the story. So yeah, it was really neat.
Those are fantastic stories. And something that you brought up, I want to reiterate one more time for everybody listening and watching, is when you bring on the other guests, it gives you that opportunity not only to learn and discover new things, which is fantastic for you, it's fantastic for them sometimes to get it off their chest, It's fantastic for the audience, but also you're able to grow your audience with theirs because, as you said, they'll go back and share that episode to their people. And now you're expanding your audience. Great way to go about it. It's something that we do our best to teach, but this is a great example of seeing it in action. Now, one thing I want to trace back to the beginning of starting the podcast, we speak with many docs who have difficulty getting started, whether that's the technology or whether it is the topics. If you traced it back to episode 0 and right before you got started, what was a roadblock to you getting there and getting to where you are today that you overcame, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think the biggest roadblock is being comfortable being on camera. I think, you know, you're always nervous whenever you do an interview or either being on an interview. You know, my butterflies are flying. You know, I'm excited, right? But that's normal. But you got to put yourself out there. So that's obviously number one. But if you're talking technology, you know, I mean, if you really think about it, it's pretty easy. You go buy a microphone. I use a Blue Yeti microphone. It's easy. You can buy them from anywhere. And then a Logitech camera that I'm using right now. And then you get some lights, and that's pretty easy. And then I use Buzzsprout. There you go. I had to think about it for a second, but Buzzsprout is where I put the audio file into, and that for me, that's really simple and easy. I don't know what you guys use yourselves, but yeah.
So I would love, first of all, I want to just acknowledge you for doing what you're doing. You're doing all the right things. We all can do better. It takes a team. We're always learning new things. And like, wait, if I did an email, if I gave my guests an email, if I made it simple so it was written for them and then they sent it out, that would be even, it's always just concentric circles of growth at each and every rep that you put in. I guess my question is, for those chiropractors listening, thinking about, hey, that's a good idea. Everybody sort of has that, well, he can do it, but I've got all the excuses and reasons why I can't. Everybody's questioning, is it really going to be worth it? I'm busy. I don't have time. I don't want to go on a steep learning curve. Excuse. What drove you starting in the very beginning when obviously everybody starts with 0 listeners, 0 followers?
Yes.
What kept you going? As Jeff mentioned earlier, when you get to the 70s, in terms of how many episodes you've done, you've obviously made some sort of commitment. You didn't do 1 or 2 and go, well, let me see if it works or not. You sort of made the commitment to say, I'm going to do, and that's my question. What was your commitment? What was it inside of you that you said, I'm going to stick with this indefinitely, or, for a certain period of time? Or what were your hopes and expectations that sort of drove you to do it and keep doing it? I'll say regardless of feedback.
I really like the question, and it makes me think about, and it's written in a book, and I don't know which book, and I wish I could tell you where to find it, but the author asks, what makes you mad? What makes you sad? And what problem do you solve? And to me, it's a really powerful question because something that really just, makes me upset, irritated, want to flip the table like Jesus did in the Gospels is how someone is treated by the medical community. They're just brushed off, your headaches, those are just in your head. That fibromyalgia, that's just in your head. Just get out of here. Or, you're just a drug seeker. That bothers me. And so I believe people need to know. People need to know what's going on. And like I said, I live in a small community. So I'm I guess a big fish in a small pond. And so these are my people. I'm going to take care of them. And I want them to know. And if I can reach a little bit further out, reach that person that I'll never see on this side of heaven, then I'm there. I'm right there. And the other thing, going to technology, Facebook is really important. Being on social media and trying to post, and we try to post at least twice a day. And I got 2 young boys, and one is on the way. and it's really exciting. So I was trying for a girl, but we ended up getting boys. But I'll post pictures of them, being a part of the community, but also I'm posting things about chiropractic. And so I do little videos. And I thought, well, I could use the same video on a podcast and on my YouTube channel. And why not?
Hey, it's Dr. Jason. I just want to take a brief moment and invite you to schedule a demo with our team to learn more about our Patient Pilot automated email campaigns. They are the smartest way to reactivate the people you've seen over the years in the past. Check it out, schedule a demo. We look forward to helping you help more people and piloting your patients back into your practice. Now back to our show.
I think you're doing a great job building that community. And that starts by, as you've described, sharing what you know about health, contributing to the benefits and values of what you do for others is a great way to bring people into your ecosystem. If you looked at the crystal ball and said in a year, 2 years, 5 years, where would you like to go with it? You are a content creator, whether by choice or by default. You're reaching people, you're continuing to grow your skill set. Practice seems like you're seeing the results of it there. If you looked forward a little bit, what would you like to be doing? Continuing on and continuing to grow? Or do you have a specific goal that you're looking forward to as time goes on?
I haven't thought about that, to be honest. I don't do the podcast to gain financially. I know some podcasts you can have sponsors and you can have affiliate marketing and things like that. And maybe that would be neat. I do have a good practice. I'm very proud. We practice 4 days a week and we're right around 100. Some days we see 120 in a day, and that's really cool. And so I know some of your audience sees a lot more than that, and that's, but I'm happy. But I would like to see my audience grow, and I would like to continue to learn, stay ahead of the curve on this technology. I have some younger staff and I'm only 33, so I consider myself young, but they're in their 20s, and I quickly learned that I am not ahead of the curve. So continuing to be ahead of the curve and continuing to learn how to reach people where they're at.
I just got to commend you. We just released a book called The Payday Practice, and one of the core principles in that book that's intended to teach people, to chiropractors specifically, to do what you're doing. It's based on the concept that you actually really care. And it's evident and obvious by your responses that you do, and that you are doing it, in fact, as a gift of generosity, of a self-aware sense that I know stuff my community doesn't. And if I don't share it with them, they're not going to get it. As you said, these are my people. And I just got to, again, acknowledge and highlight that attitude and perspective, because that's an essential core part of this. Different than, I'm going to do a new form of marketing because I need new patients. And maybe if I, reach more people and et cetera. So kudos to you on that. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but my question is, what would you tell other chiropractors thinking about doing this? What would you share with them as you're on your journey ahead of those that are thinking about it, maybe thinking about it, may have, bought all the equipment, but aren't yet comfortable, or, I don't know if you ever get comfortable with it, but I guess you get comfortable in being uncomfortable, whatever paradox that is. What advice do you have for other chiropractors?
Well, I hate that this is such a simple answer to your question, but it's like the Nike slogan, just do it.
Yeah.
You never know the results on the other side. You never know who you're going to reach that needed to hear what you have to say. Because like I said, the story or the theme of the office is your story matters. And, there was a point in my life where I was a new doc and I was an associate doc and I wasn't doing very good. And I kept comparing myself to the owners of the office. I was comparing my chapter 1 to their chapter 20. And I wanted to give up. And I was like, I'm going to quit. I'm just going to go work in a factory somewhere and give up on myself. And, so I feel like I have a story worth sharing. And thank you for inviting me to share my story on your guys' show. But also the docs that are listening to this, you all have a story. There's a reason why you became a chiropractor, and people want to know, right? So just do it.
Great bit of advice. And Chris, thank you for staying in the game. Thank you for just doing it. For the docs listening and watching, if you want to share, where can they learn more? Where can they see you in action?
So the podcast and the YouTube channel, it's the same name. It's Thriving with Chiropractic. It's on YouTube and Apple and Spotify, your common places for podcasts. And then I practice in small town, Salem, Indiana. So it's more southern Indiana near Louisville.
That is great. We will be sure to drop those links down below. And everybody listening and watching, please check out what Chris is up to. He is a great example of somebody who is getting out, teaching and inviting consistently, learning along the way, utilizing the tools, the techniques, and the technology available to him to spread the message and make a big impact in his community and beyond. And I think if all of us do that, not only will our practices be healthier, but our communities will be as well. Chris, thanks for taking some time and chatting with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this video on The Smart Chiropractor. To not miss a single thing that's clinically oriented, marketing oriented, or more, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel today.